Hello, everyone. My name is Ziad from Simplified Pharmacy, and today I want to share how I ended up working in a pharmacy as a pharmacist. And so I started my journey in 2018. So I came to Canada in 2018, and I wanted to pass all my exams from the first attempt. And so to support myself, I wanted to work in a pharmacy as a pharmacy assistant, A, to make some money, and B, to gain Canadian experience. And so to start the journey, I was looking for pharmacists to work at. But the problem was that if you want to work in a pharmacy, then you have to have Canadian experience. And to have Canadian experience, you have to work in a pharmacy. So it was a vicious cycle, as you might know by now. And so I stopped chasing the idea of looking for a pharmacy to work at, and I shifted my mindset to just start as a volunteer. So when you start as a volunteer, that gives you a little bit of experience and exposure so that it becomes more easy for you to work as an assistant, like a full-time job. So I started looking for volunteering. So after 1.5 years of searching for jobs and volunteers, finally I landed my first volunteer position. It was in a private pharmacy. So I started there for about 4 months, which can be a little bit longer time for a volunteering process. The problem was when I started working or started volunteering in the pharmacy, it was very overwhelming because A, the pharmacy was very busy and no one actually had the time to teach you stuff and walk you through stuff. And B, because the pharmacies here in Canada are very different from where I came from. Like the systems are just completely different. So I remember the first day when the pharmacist gave me a prescription to fill. So I literally looked at the prescription. I was like, I don't know what to do exactly, right? So the idea is that some people expect you to have some knowledge, like a little bit of knowledge, like you basically have any idea of how things work in the pharmacy. And so it was a little bit of a shock for the first couple of weeks because I was learning so much. And basically, most of the things I was learning on my own, which was trial and error. And that's not the ideal thing to do in a pharmacy, of course. Not related to patients. I mean, like by trial and error, but I mean, like doing things wrong on the computer and the pharmacist, like I ask the pharmacist and then they come fix it for me. So the idea is that, as I said, pharmacies are very different here. And I wish I had some guidelines to follow before I volunteered in the pharmacy, right? And so I continued working as or volunteering in the pharmacy. And then after 4 months, I applied for a position in another private pharmacy, and I got my first full-time job after 1.5 years. So working full-time while studying for the PBC. So I cleared all my exams for the first attempt, and we'll talk about this in a separate video, how I did that. And so I started working as a pharmacist. So two things. So one, when I was working as a pharmacy assistant, everything, as I mentioned, was very overwhelming. And so this is why I created the first program that I have, which is the pharmacy assistant program. So this is basically everything that I learned throughout those years from the pharmacy assistant perspective and from the pharmacist perspective. And so I started, uh, as I mentioned, like I started the program in 2024, and this has all the information necessary that you would need so that when you work or volunteer as an assistant, you will have the basic idea of what to do in a pharmacy, and you will not walk into a pharmacy with like, what should I do? right? What are my responsibilities? How to read prescriptions, how to fill the prescriptions, how to do or use crawl software. So the basic stuff that you need to get started. And after I started working as a pharmacist, I faced a different kind of problem, which was the insurance problem. So on my first day as a pharmacist, I was confident in my knowledge, like the clinical knowledge, drugs and everything. But the problem was I was doing good in this area. However, my first shift, I was working alone and I didn't have an assistant. And so when people presented with prescriptions like new patients and they had insurance, I froze because I didn't know what to do with this small thing. So people might be wondering, didn't you learn insurance while you're working as an assistant? I did not because I was working in a private pharmacy that specializes in blister packs. So all I was doing was blister packs, sometimes prescriptions here and there. However, I did not touch insurance. So that was my first time dealing with it. And people also might be saying like insurance is the problem of the assistant or technician, not the pharmacist. But if you are working alone now, it's your problem because like it's not professional leaving things the next day for the people. Like it's not their responsibility anymore because you should solve your problems in the same day if you can as a pharmacist, right? So stucking or being stuck with insurance taught me a lot of things. So by time asking people, asking my colleagues, asking the staff, the assistants, the technicians, I got to learn insurance and I mastered it. Insurance can be easy to deal with, but you need to know what to do exactly. So like the small stuff. So this is why I created the Ontario Billing Program. So it's very comprehensive. It includes the ODB, private insurance, how to read the insurance cards, how to enter it in the system, and basically it's everything, even the complicated scenarios, how to deal with audits. So I compiled everything into one resource, which is the Ontario Billing Program, to solve the problem that I wished that I solved when I started working as a pharmacist. So basically, this is how I ended up here, and this is why I developed the two programs. And so, if you are watching so far and if you're interested in learning any of the programs or both of the programs, I will leave the link in the description. And if you would like to know how I passed all my exams from the first attempt, let me know as well, and I will create a video about that.